So this is assignment number 5. Create a video in which you analyze how Arizona manages its water resources through the use of canals, man-made reservoirs, and local ordinances involving the use of water. Arizona is mostly desert or close to it. Because of the arid conditions, they have needed to find ways to get water to other parts of the state that are not close to a river. Even in pre-Westernization times, the Hokum culture that was living in the Phoenix area had to find ways around the lack of water. So they built canals. Canals are man-made streams of water that lead from rivers to other places. In this instance, it would be towns or farmland. These canals have to be going downhill so that the water will continue using gravity, which is why, when looking down from a plane, they go in some strange directions that would not make sense otherwise. These canals carried enough water that the Hokum would be able to water enough farmland to support 50,000 people. For reasons unknown, the Hokum left the area around 1450. Probably best for them, knowing what happens next. When Europeans came to America, they found these canals abandoned, this being what the Hokum are mostly known for today. Taking these canals and improving some while filling in others, they helped build Phoenix into a sprawling community, now growing bigger than what is feasible for it. These canals started off being cleaned by hand. They led horses down the shallow water, with wagons trailing behind them that would clear the algae and weeds. During World War II, however, they had Italian and German prisoners of war do the job for them. After that, machinery was used instead. Until, in the 1990s, a fish native to China was introduced that cleaned rivers for them, as well as the canals being improved by then, lined with concrete after the 1950s. Recently, new trails were added around the canals in a project named the Grand Canalscape. Yes, that's the official name, with added shade for bikers and walkers. Luckily, the project was finished when it did, because after years of working, the grand opening for the Grand Canalscape was February 20th, 2020. I'm sure it got a lot more traffic than was probably planned for. So, for another project, I made a website. This website was about how humans have changed nature to fit their needs. One section of it was about dams, and a list of facts was included when hitting a button. I could rewrite all of it into a more cohesive paragraph, but since I did already do the work, I'm just going to read it. Water is important because we need to live. Without water, we would all die. Other animals have evolved to adapt to the desert and found ways around this problem. Some even go so far as to concentrate their urine to lose less water. Humans are impatient, however, and we are smart enough that we will put that to use. One thing that was done was building dams. Dams aren't necessarily a human invention. Beavers build dams for themselves. The problem is that humans build these dams at a much larger scale. Today, dams need to go through years of environmental impact research before being built. Although most of the previously built dams do get to stay, there are efforts, however, to remove some of them. Now, for the facts part. 1. Fish have more trouble following the river. A lot of dams have fish ladders to help them get back upstream, but they're not as effective as one would hope. The change in both the current and the chemicals in the water also impacts the biology of the fish and where they need to go for spawning grounds versus feeding grounds, etc. 2. Many materials, like sediments, logs, and food, get trapped behind the dam, impacting the environment downstream and affecting the landscape in the long run. Sediments like these that get trapped behind dams, as well as algae growth, become food for microbes living there. These microbes emit methane in bubbles. Methane contributes about 79% of all gases from dams, and it is 35 times more harmful than carbon dioxide. This makes dams and reservoirs contribute 1.3% of greenhouse gas emissions annually. This is more than previously thought because the bubbles are harder to detect than straight up gases coming from the water. 3. Because of the larger surface area of the reservoir and loss of movement due to the dam, the water evaporates quicker due to heat from the sun. This leads to some funky stuff in the climate. It changes the rainfall in the area, leading to a change in the region as a whole. 4. Because of all the dams on the Colorado River, it no longer reaches the coast of Mexico. Each state has an allocated amount of water. I think this last fact would actually work better for the next paragraph. Going off of that, the last thing I'm going to talk about is what the laws are for using water in Arizona. There are rules for how much of the Colorado River each state can have. The specifics of this are confusing. There were some court cases and such, and I will just spare you the trouble by giving you the abridged version, and what is just happening today instead of in the past. The states are split into 2 categories, the upper basin and the lower basin. The upper basin consists of Colorado, New Mexico, Utah, and Wyoming. The lower basin consists of Nevada, Arizona, and California. Each basin is allotted 7.5 million acre-feet, or math because it's easier. For context, 1 million gallons of water is only about 3.07 acre-feet. Not 3 million acre-feet. Just 3. The upper basin decided to agree civilly, and each state was given a percentage. Colorado 51.75, New Mexico 11.25, Utah 23, and Wyoming 14%. The lower half argued, due to California supposedly, and each was given a number of math they could use in a year. Arizona 2.8, California 4.4, and Poor Nevada at 0.3 a year. Also, California, being greedy and the bottom state, took advantage of those not using all the allocated water and diverted some. Even in 1997, instead of their allocated 4.4 math, they used about 5.2. Time to talk current news. There's been a drought, and because of that, there have been put in some contingency plans. Again, a lot of government stuff, so I'll just try to put it in simple terms. In Lake Mead and Lake Powell, over the last 22 years, only 5 have been of average rainfall, the rest lower. This has put these 2 lakes in danger of dropping below the line for producing energy. It was projected in 2021 that as early as March 2022, this was a risk for Lake Powell. Some rules were put in place, and a few thousand acre-feet were set aside from each state to help prevent this. Each year, the Bureau of Reclamation puts out an annual operating plan for Colorado River reserves. In this plan for 2022, the upper basin was to leave an extra 0.181 math, and the lower basin was limited to 7.167 math. Mexico will get 1.450 math. This was a lot of technical talk, but you get the point. So far, Arizona, unlike California, has no water police to limit how wasteful you are with your water. However, they have cut back on government use of water a bit. Again, this last part was very technical, and I had to look through only a few government documents. That's all I have for today. I hope that it answers all the points in the question. I also have a link in the description for the script to this because I learned my mistake from not having one last time. Bye!